All right, everybody, welcome in to Load the Box. I am your host, Jordan Hawthorne, joined as always by the marvelous and the wonderful Jack H. Day. Jack, we've already talked about how this is going to be a very quick show. The only chance we go long is if we start talking about our golf games on the air. I think we're going to be able to keep it straight and narrow, unlike my golf shot. Boom, bam. But yeah, man, it's been a couple weeks, not a ton of news. I think this is kind of a check-in show for us, but how have you been? How's your summer off? Is your summer off to a good start? You know, how you enjoying the weather, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's been good. I'm looking forward to the end of July. I can tell you that. I'm looking forward to actually seeing videos circulating with the pads on and hearing the pops for the first time, because we've had these conversations offline as well. It's just not the same. We're seeing videos with it's mandatory minicamp. There's been rookie minicamp, OTAs. Yeah, there's been some highlight reel catches out of a no-name wide receiver out of the University of Mankato or Minnesota State, whatever generation you're from, whatever you want to call it. But there's been some storylines to follow, but at the end of the day, we're not going to know much about this football team until, preseason, regular season. We might not know halfway through the season what the identity of this football team is. And I think it's hard to be excited right now, but as a Vikings fan, there's so many new things going on at TCO Performance Center. I think it makes it a little bit easier to look ahead and get excited, but like I said, it's the beginning of June. There's still a month and a half and some change left before there is some real football activities going on. And I think the show will kind of increase our intensity as we get closer to that point.
Yeah, I think, and I haven't been following baseball a ton this season. I kind of swore off it whenever the Reds made all those trades before the season, and they're not the worst team in baseball anymore, which is cool. But I do think that we still have about a month and a half to go until football really amps up and it starts being in the back of our minds, hey, training camp, hey, it's the night practice, hey, it's preseason, and then, we can actually see these guys, like you said, in the pads, more contact, and even after the preseason, I don't know how much we'll know. I think you'll have some shows saying, the preseason, we'll lose 2 games straight in the preseason, and people will start talking if O'Connell has a winning mentality and if it was all McVay and blah, blah, blah. I think people are going to overreact because one thing I've learned since getting into doing the show and seeing Vikings Twitter and kind of interacting with more Minnesotans is we are a volatile bunch. I'm right there with you guys. I'm not saying like this is not Cincinnati elitism. This is just it's a volatile bunch of people that are very quick to react and very quick to overreact in a lot of cases. But there is a little bit of news. I have Pro Football Talk brought up here, just kind of headlines. This is the national media, obviously, that's doing this. But one piece of news that I do think is worth bringing up is the Vikings cutting running back A.J. Rose. Of course, he had the huge preseason last year, and everybody was all, excited. Not excited about him, but they thought, he had a chance to make the 53, and of course he didn't. And I think, did he go to, Arizona? Did he get signed from our practice squad, or did he end up sticking?
I can't remember.
I guess if we had to cut him this year, he probably ended up sticking, but he had a really good preseason last year. He's no longer a Viking because they have made room for Albert Wilson, the former Miami Dolphins wide receiver. Pretty solid addition. I would view it similarly to D.D. Westbrook, who has also worked out for the Vikings recently. I think that I don't know how much it changes. It's going to be Thielen and Jefferson. I think we're going to see more of Emil Smith-Marset this season, just kind of to stretch the field in a Deshaun Jackson type role. I don't know. I think he's just kind of a depth piece. It wouldn't shock me if he made the 53 because, this new regime is not in love with guys like, Chad Beebe or, Olabisi Johnson or some of the names that Vikings fans have grown accustomed to. But yeah, what are your thoughts on newest member to the Vikings, Albert Wilson, or at least newest wide receiver?
Well, I really like the depth at that position. I don't think that's something that we've really been able to say in years past. And I mean, it's been a star-loaded wide receiver core with Adam Thielen over the last decade, with the first 6-7 years with Stephon Diggs. Now with Justin Jefferson, who I think you can argue is probably top 2, top 3 wide receiver in the league, but the depth behind those two, it's a lot better than it's been in years past. And I think with Albert Wilson, I think a key thing to look at is the punt returning ability. I don't think he's done a ton of it in the NFL, but he has the capability to do that. And without D.D. Westbrook, that role is wide open now. Now my phone is ringing, excuse me. That role is wide open and up for grabs. One thing that you said, I'm very excited about Ihmir Smith-Marsette going into year 2. A little bit of news. I'm not sure if you've seen this. I feel like a lot of the news kind of comes and goes. He has been in a walking boot the last couple of weeks. I know he hasn't. I think what O'Connell said is he's done for the spring. So I would assume he's going to hopefully he'll be ready to go for training camp. And then there's going to be a fun competition. I think Paul Allen recently said that he puts the odds at about plus 200 that rookie wide receiver Jalen Naylor claims the wide receiver 3 spot, which I think was insane. Hearing someone like Paul Allen say that when you see KJ Osborne break out, I think BC Johnson has actually been wide receiver 3 because I think there was something going on with Osborne one day as well. So Osborne and Smith-Marsette weren't out there. I've seen some good things about BC Johnson too. So just hearing good things about these wide receivers, like I said, it's not true football quite yet, but knowing that they're getting the depth there, I think is huge for a position that quite frankly just hasn't had that in years past.
Yeah, it feels like in years past it really has been. I think we've had an evolving duo of wide receiver 3s, but I don't think we've had any confidence that, like, if back in the day, if Diggs went down or if Thielen went down, that our number 2 could really step up and be a number 2. And I'm not saying be as good as Diggs or Thielen, but I'm saying step into the offense and still, get open for Kirk Cousins consistently. And I do think that they're starting to shape into that. I really like I love like role playing wide receivers, like, the guys that are just really good at running routes, or the guys that are just really good at, being fast. Like Emil Smith-Marsette is the name that comes to mind for like just the speed on the Vikings. I can't really think of the pure outrunner that is on the Vikings right now. Because I would not say that Adam Thielen is that. I know that, he got the scholarship, blah, 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 the storyline, but like, he's pretty quick. I've seen him pull away from a couple people in his prime, and maybe he's that now as he's entering the back 9 of his career, if you will. But I don't know. I agree with you. I think that there's a lot of good depth there. This is kind of off the wall. Did you see the like not official reports, but like what's his name? I can't think of his name now. Linval Joseph was at TCO, just kind of walking out.
I did, and I saw one of the reporters kind of. He lives up here, and I think he has a son that goes to school up here, so he's just working out. I don't think that's anything to look into. I did see that first, what you're talking about, where it was just like someone tweeted about it, so I went to his Instagram story, and he just had a picture of like the stadium at TCO, and I was like, that's odd. But then I think Darren Wolfson of Channel 5 up here tweeted, yeah, he trains here in the summers and lives up here in the summers. So I don't think it's an official
he is of my young adult to adult life watching the Vikings. He's one of my all-time favorites, just because of how, good he really could be, and
nothing's better than
the defense.
The mask, the oxygen mask. Yeah. After I don't know if it was a fumble or an interception. I can't remember what it was.
I think it was a fumble, but I can't remember. I know it was against Philly. I know that it was against Philly.
Big man moving.
Big man, rumble, big man rumble. But yeah. Other than that, of course, there was the tragic passing of Jeff Gladney since the last time we did the show. I think still it was him and his girlfriend in the vehicle, which like that happens a lot. I think whenever athletes or celebrities do pass in these types of ways, is you kind of forget the other people that were affected. So. I know it kind of gets, laughed at or people make jokes about it, but legitimately, I mean, thoughts and prayers for all the families involved in all of that. I mean, that's just a tragic thing, but let's see. Let's move on to a couple other topics just so that way we can at least have a little bit of time here. Kyle Slaughter's playing in the USFL, and other than that, I would say that the next thing would just be talking about Kellen Mond. I want to open it up to you before I just start throwing doubts at the boat and hoping we can stick something. Do you have anything, or do you want to talk about Kellen Mond? Because I think that's my best.
Yeah, we can talk about that. We can maybe end the show with a couple things we're excited for, and like leave you with that for the next. I think we're kind of going to try to be in a schedule with bi-weekly, but if we get to a point 2 weeks down the road and there's still nothing to talk about, we'll follow us on Twitter, a little hint at LTB Vikings. But the Kellen Mond stuff has been interesting because it's even worse than what I had thought it was when Mike Zimmer was here, and I don't know what it stems from. If it was a Rick Spielman pick or if it was an ownership pick, and Mike Zimmer just straight up said this could have been a useful piece to our defense, which I hate to break it to you, it was hard finding useful pieces anywhere in this draft for the last year and a half, or last two drafts, I want to say. Last year's draft kind of got some slack, and we're starting to see Wyatt Davis practice with the twos. I saw he was practicing with the twos at left guard, which that's going to be a whole nother storyline worth monitoring. But yeah, let's talk about Kellen Mond, because I know you and I, every single mock draft we did 2 years ago or a year ago, whatever it was now, had Kellen Mond in it, because we agreed that if Kirk Cousins is going to be the guy, they still need to at least throw a dart throw at that position, because there was it's Sean Mannion, who is still here. I've heard he had a good practice this week as well, but it's insane reading some of this stuff. Like, Kellen Mond and his dad came out in an article and essentially said that there was no relationship with Mike Zimmer, and Mike Zimmer didn't speak to Kellen Mond. And throwing a rookie quarterback into that situation, if Kellen Mond wins that QB2 backup role behind Kirk Cousins this year, I'm going to label that as a win after everything that we saw last year. And I mean, there's people bashing him and saying there's no way that he can be the guy, because there's an entire front office and coaching staff that doesn't believe in him. I don't know if that's true. And after hearing this, no, it seems like it was a lot more of a Mike Zimmer issue than it was a Kellen Mond issue. I'm not saying Kellen Mond was probably wasn't great in practice, but I do remember going out to training camp. The first player on the field, the couple times that I was out there last year, it was Kellen Mond every single time. The guy has a good work ethic. They were saying, I can't remember if it was O'Connell or Wes Phillips. It was one of the two. Said that he was making some really good checks, and just he has more of a leadership persona about him. He's talking more. The step you want to see a rookie make in the year two. And yes, the playing time wasn't there, but put him in an offense where it's an offensive guru that can hopefully surround him with talent that's going to kind of lift him up. And hey, that's something that I'm not going to sit here and bash Kirk Cousins, but if you can do that with Kirk Cousins, I think there's going to be, this offense is going to do wonders. I know we talk about the leadership there with Kirk Cousins, and he was mic'd up. I don't know if it was yesterday or 2 days ago, but Kirk Cousins was mic'd up, and he is chatty Cathy out there at practice. He's talking with everybody, having conversation. It's a different feel, and that's what ownership preached going into the new GM and new coaching hires. They had to have this culture, a collaborative culture. I almost said collaboration and collaborative at the same time, but you have to have both of those things. And I think we're starting to see that with these players who, I think it was Chris Boyd too. Someone said that they're going around practice terrified to make a mistake, and that you can't be a great football team with that. I think the Bill Belichick supporters might say otherwise, because I think it might be that type of feel, that old school style of coaching. But you look around the league, and that's not the norm anymore. These teams are finding these younger guys that fit into a locker room more. And Kevin O'Connell was in an NFL locker room just what was it? Not 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. I don't know. I have no idea when that was, but he was in an NFL locker room, and he's 36 years old. He's going to relate to these guys a lot better than Mike Zimmer, and I think we're starting to see that through different players, including Kellen Mond.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, I don't want to say anything about Kellen Mond or like get too excited or be too down on him until like the preseason and training camp, and we really start seeing him play.
I'm excited for just the preseason, just because of Kellen Mond, because we haven't been able to see him play.
And I think I think it's really difficult to be successful whenever your boss is completely brushing you off, didn't want you, and I'm not saying Kellen Mond's anything special. I'm not saying Kellen Mond has taken Cousins' job. That's not what I'm getting at, but I am saying maybe the Kellen Mond pick wasn't such a waste of a pick, and maybe we do have a competent backup that could have been a competent backup all of last season, and luckily, Cousins stayed healthy all of last year, and historically has done so. So like the backup, it's still a valuable position, because we kind of talked before the show about the defensive side of the ball and how a couple plays away from the defense looking pretty bad, in my opinion. And I think Kellen Mond, like I think it's going to come down to training camp, whenever there's pads, whenever he really has some time to dig his teeth into the offense. I think that's whenever you will start to get more of a judgment from me, and I think the wider fan base, because I'm not trying to dance on anybody's grave here, but like come on, like Mike Zimmer, if Kellen Mond looks good in the preseason, it is going to be one of the biggest like black scratches on his coaching career for the Vikings. It is going to be this like everyone can just point to Kellen Mond and be like, hey, that is why Mike Zimmer did not win a Super Bowl as a coach. That is why Mike Zimmer consistently, like, made the playoffs one year and then missed and then made it and never had any consistency and never had any of this, because he wasn't willing to work hand in hand with Rick Spielman and deal the hand he was dealt by his GM and, use the players to the best of their abilities. And he had no interest in developing a young quarterback. Well, was Zimmer planning on retiring in like 2 years? Because I don't think he was. And so the fact that he just brushed away this rookie quarterback like he was a nobody is pretty sad. Jeff Hawthorne is in the chat. He's saying we need J.C. Treader on the Vikings. And I would agree with that. He has a pretty interesting theory. I'm going to go ahead and steal it. That Treader is just holding out right now until training camp and everything's done because he does not want to go do all that, and he doesn't see the need to do all that. So he's keeping himself in shape, and he will make a decision on where he lands after some of the mini camps, the mandatory OTAs are done, and he'll make a decision probably in like the July time frame. Maybe, once the camps start up that like, you're learning playbooks, you're getting ready for preseason, that kind of stuff. And I kind of buy into that, but really quickly, I do want to flip over to the defensive side of the ball, and this will be my last thing I say, and then I'll pass it back to you for the rest of the show. I just got to say, Jalen Twyman, I know you brought up on the depth chart, Jalen Twyman is listed as a starting end at the moment, along with, what's the name? Help me.
Opposite of him, Harrison Phillips.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So him and Harrison Phillips are stuff in the middle. I was super high on Jalen Twyman coming out of the draft. Much like Kellen Mond, he was a name that was frequently mocked in on this show, and really happy that he is getting the time of day. I think he's going to be something special, and I cannot wait to wear my number 93 jersey and just duct tape over the Randall pout and write Twyman on it. Just, not to be disrespectful, but it is kind of cool that he's wearing that number, being an undersized. He's an end, but the 3-4 defense, he's basically a tackle. It's how it works. Other defensive news, you're seeing guys like Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter now linebackers instead of ends. You're hearing reports of Danielle Hunter going inside a little bit more this season to go against like some guards instead of going against just tackles, and I think that's pretty cool. I think that we're going to see some creativity out of the defense that we have not seen in a while. Like, I think Minnesotans, I think Vikings fans had their heads blown whenever Mike Zimmer showed up and started putting 2 linebackers in the A gap, and we were like, holy cow, this is crazy defense. And I think we're going to get our mind blown even more by some of the stuff Ed Donatell's going to do with the defense this season. I like that they're not, technically they're a 3-4 defense, but I don't think they are running a strict 3-4 only defense. I think they have the personnel that they can move the pieces around and kind of be a competent version of whatever defense they need to be, which I think is what this team's going to morph into, is really, really good offense, because I have high hopes for the offense with O'Connell. I think the defense is going to be serviceable, and I if it can be in like the top 16, top 15, 12, whatever of the league, I think that the Vikings are playoff bound and Super Bowl bound, and that's right. It is June 8th, and I'm guaranteeing a Vikings Super Bowl if we finish with the 16th defense or better. But that is all for me. We will speak again at some point before training camp, I'm sure. Hopefully, those not hopefully news breaks. It's baseball season, guys. Come on. It's the finals tonight. There's no need for us to talk for too long. So, Jack, I'm going to pass it back to you. Let you give your thoughts on the defense, any closing arguments you may have, and then we'll get out of the people's hair.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot, but I think just seeing the stuff on social media, like seeing some of like the pranks that they're doing on each other, and just like the camaraderie in the locker room with Zadarius Smith, with Eric Kendricks. Guys, I mean, Eric Kendricks is a huge one because he was the most vocal we've ever heard Eric Kendricks after last season, talking about you can't have a fear-based culture, and it spoke volumes about what the state of that locker room was, and seeing these guys having fun playing the game again, I think that's awesome. And one thing that we preached regularly throughout the draft process was how important versatility is going to be on this defense. You just mentioned Danielle Hunter being used as like a chess piece, being moved around on all different parts of the defensive line. Zadarius Smith has made a living doing that same exact thing. So you have two guys that can flip-flop, play inside, play outside. You have Eric Kendricks, a very, very good, solid inside linebacker that, hey, is also really good in coverage, one of the top linebackers in coverage. They drafted Lewis Cine, who's supposed to be like a free safety type ball hawk. He has the ball hawk capabilities, but he also is going to fly downhill and smack you in the mouth, and that is going to allow Harrison Smith to play up in the box. I would not be shocked one bit if we saw a little bit more of some three safety looks with Cam Bynum, Lewis Cine, and Harrison Smith all in the field at once. And the cornerback position, like the position opposite of it in practice, the wide receiver position, the cornerback position, I feel better about going into this year than I have in years past, because you have, I think Patrick Peterson said today, actually, like this is the best he's felt coming out of mandatory minicamp OTAs in a long time. And if the Vikings can get a healthy, like ready to go Patrick Peterson that even is 85% of what he was in Arizona, I shouldn't even say that, because Patrick Peterson wasn't bad for the Vikings last year. I think there's a lot of people that assume because he got his last interception in week 18 that he was a bad cornerback. He was by far the best cornerback the Vikings had on the roster last year. And now that I'm talking about the defense, all these different storylines are flowing into my head. But Cameron Dancer also mentioned something a couple weeks ago that he was frustrated seeing, oh my, why is the name escaping me? Number 20, I can visualize him getting burnt almost every single play last year. He was number 21. Why is his name? From Kansas City.
Wait, from Kansas City?
You played for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Oh no! Yeah, and he flipped off the fans or whatever. And I don't know if he flipped them off.
He was
the
social media,
and he started talking about his Johnson going in people's mouths. What was his name?
Bashad Breeland. My God,
you.
I could not think of that to save my life for some reason, but. He talked about how he was frustrated, how he was struggling, and he didn't get to see much playing time. I think we're going to see a better Cameron Dancer coming in. He has some competition in behind him. I'm super high on both of Caleb Evans and obviously Andrew Booth Jr. Go back and watch the draft episodes if you haven't seen them yet, because we talk a lot about Andrew Booth Jr. And I'm excited about the defense. I don't think there's any reason to necessarily be worried about the offense, because what we have to compare, I mean, Kevin O'Connell is working with a Super Bowl winning offense with a similar style quarterback as Kirk Cousins, whereas the Vikings had the offspring of every name, it's June, man. They're all escaping me. Who was the offensive coordinator that everyone loved so much last year?
That's a really good question. He was somebody's son.
Yeah, it was.
And I can't think of his
name.
Clint
Kubiak. Yep. It's all coming to me. It just, bear with me. We'll get to the season. We're in off-season mode too, if you're listening. But I don't think that a guy coming from an offense that was as high-powered as it was should come in and have any real reason to be worse than what was here the year prior. It was, I mean, some head-scratching play calls last year I'm putting it rather lightly when I say that, I think. So I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited. I think the fans that are saying, hey, this is a 14-15 win team, I think they need to pump the brakes. It is a new head coach. There's a lot of learning curves to go through. But if this offense doesn't skip a beat, there's really nowhere for the defense to go but up. The defense was atrocious the last couple seasons. So if they can kind of come together, I wouldn't be shocked if this is a playoff team come January. I don't know if I'm going to sit here and say, hey, the Vikings have a chance at winning the Super Bowl, but this could very easily be a 10-11 win team. But again, it's hard for me to fully dive into that, because I can see the scenarios where it is a new head coach. This franchise hasn't had, I think Denny Green was the only first-year head coach. I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure it was him. I think he was the only first-year head coach with the Minnesota Vikings to win 10-plus games, and I think it was just 10 games. So I know there's a lot of high expectations for O'Connell, and rightfully so. I have a lot of high expectations myself for the foreseeable future, but I do think we need to kind of pump the brakes a little bit here and just let them get in the groove, go through training camp, see what things are looking like a couple weeks into the season, because the Vikings, as we talked about in the last time, they play all 3 divisional opponents within the first 5 weeks, and then on the final 5 weeks they play them again. So they're going to have their work cut out for them from the get-go, and I think it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be a fun ride, so Vikings fans should buckle up for it. But if you don't have anything else to say, I will leave everybody with a skol as always, and have a good night.